All right, Sean Payton, add him to the list. Already a pretty impressive list for the Texans when it comes to coaches that they at least want to talk to. Now, whether or not these coaches want to talk to them is to be determined. I anticipate most of them will want to. Nick Caserio actually addressed some of those rumblings when he joined Payne and Pendergast today on Sports Radio 610. So I got the audio. We can hear that in a sec. But the big news right now is Sean Payton. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, please, and spread the word. It's been a very, very eventful, very, very wild offseason so far. And the news of the Sean Payton thing is front and center. He's a trending topic right now. Minutes after the Arizona Cardinals requested to speak to Sean Payton, who's already spoken with Denver. He's basically making the rounds. The Texans made the request. I get why you want to talk to Sean Payton. I don't think there's like a downside to it if you're the Houston Texans. I don't think it's the best fit. I've actually said this in the past. I don't think it's the best fit. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm selling them short. Maybe I'm overthinking things and not looking at, the possibility of getting the best coach possible. But I just think for many reasons, I don't think Sean Payton's the best fit. Now, if Sean Payton wants the job, I think that says a lot about the state of this gig, though, because there's a lot of national media types, and I think they're just kind of talking out of their ass. But they're saying that, this job isn't appealing. I disagree with that, especially when you lay out the assets and you lay out the situation that there is. So if Sean Payton wants the job, that's interesting. If the Texans want to give him the job, it guarantees excitement. It guarantees immediate football credibility. I think season ticket sales would go up. I'm not like going to pound the table against the idea of Sean Payton coming to the Houston Texans. I just am not as excited by it as a lot of people are, for a lot of reasons. First of all, he's already kind of shown you that he doesn't really want to be patient. He was in New Orleans for all those years. Sometimes breaking up, divorce is a good thing. I know we've heard that here with Lovie Smith. But as soon as New Orleans got average and Drew Brees left, Sean Payton left. So why would Sean Payton want to come into a situation where there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but it's somewhat of a rebuild? I think Arizona, for the mindset that Sean Payton has, would be better. And I think really Denver would probably be better. Also, I don't want to trade for Sean Payton. And I know people have like these examples that they almost, I understand the value of a head coach. And a head coach is worth multiple first-round picks. If you're going to get a good coach for 10, 15 years, a good head coach is worth multiple first-round picks. I don't think Tampa Bay regretted trading for John Gruden. The Patriots damn sure didn't regret trading for Bill Belichick. The Jets didn't regret trading for Bill Parcells. Herm Edwards was traded for. Mike Holmgren was traded for. But the difference between Sean Payton and all those guys is none of those guys stepped away for a year. Like none of those guys decided, you know what? Whether it's the fact that we're not good anymore, whether it's the fact I don't have my quarterback, whether it's the fact that I just need to rest, whatever it is, I'm going to go be an average analyst and awkwardly sit at the end of the Fox booth and broadcast football games. And then I'm going to come back and want to coach football. Is that not, how in is somebody that has to step away for a year when it comes to trading max draft equity for him? Because that's what you have to trade first round pick. They're talking first round pick for Sean Payton. Do you want to trade pick 12 for Sean Payton? If he's going to be what he was in New Orleans, sure. But what is Sean Payton without Drew Brees? Seems like he was kind of scared to figure out. Seems like he didn't like it too much. He didn't last too long, even thinking about the possibility his damn self. So now he's going to come here and all of a sudden just be revived in this situation? Does Nick Caserio want that? Again, it doesn't hurt to talk to him. I mean, if you can sit with Sean Payton, if Sean Payton says yes and Cal McNair, Nick Caserio, Greg Grissom, whoever, are able to pick the brain of Sean Payton with the cameras off and find out what he thinks about the organization, there's nothing bad about it. But is he a good fit here? Maybe. I mean, again, he's a hell of a football coach. But, you know, Parcells was pissed off because he didn't have enough control in New England. He and Kraft were butting heads. So he went to the Jets. Back to New York. Belichick just didn't want to be in New York. He didn't want to follow Bill Parcells. He didn't want Bill Parcells to still be there. But he was still in coach mode. So they traded for him. Holmgren was still in the mix. Like, none of these guys walked away. Sean Payton walked away. Why? Just need a break? You think if Drew Brees were still in his prime, Sean Payton would have needed a break? I mean, I don't. So from where the Texans are, from a standpoint, I would doubt that Nick Caserio would want this. Maybe the Texans talked themselves into it. It would be exciting. I mean, it would be good for content. But what is Sean Payton without Drew Brees? We don't know. I mean, and from Sean Payton's perspective, it could be a mutual beneficial thing because he can use the Texans for leverage. I think the thing to watch with this whole thing is what happens in Jacksonville during Wild Card weekend when they face the Chargers. Because I think if Jacksonville loses or if the Chargers lose to Jacksonville, I think Brandon Staley gets fired, and he should. I don't give a damn if he made the playoffs or not. Titans fired a coach after he won a playoff game. You got to be able to look past it. I mean, some of the bet-ish crazy stuff that Brandon Staley has done. You got Mike Williams. You had Mike Williams playing in a meaningless game. He got hurt. Bosa got hurt. You go to Jacksonville and lose, I think he gets fired, and I think that's where Sean Payton ends up because he clearly wants a quarterback. I mean, is he intrigued by working with Kyler Murray? I don't know. Does he think he can work with Russell Wilson? I don't know. Does he really like any quarterbacks in this upcoming draft? I don't know. I know he said he doesn't like Bryce Young, but he seems to be very quarterback dependent. And if the Los Angeles job opens up again, which it should, if the Jags beat the Chargers, then Justin Herbert's a no-brainer for Sean Payton. And you can go live in Los Angeles. I mean, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer for Sean Payton. So again, to put a bow on it, no issue with the Texans interviewing Sean Payton. There's not a lot to lose. Don't think it's an awesome fit. Skeptical about a guy who walks away for a year because because it would cost draft equity, probably prime draft equity. Again, if he's what he was before, then yeah, it's worth it. It's worth trading a first-round pick. You sure he's going to be? He didn't want to coach without Drew Brees. So there's that. But it's from an excitement standpoint, the credibility of the Texans right now, assuming that these interviews get accepted, I think it's a lot higher than it's been in a long time. I think the last 3 days for the Texans, it's been the best PR they've had in a long time. And you got to wonder, Cal's taken a more active role. What would it have looked like if that had never happened? Obviously, I think it's fair and it's necessary to acknowledge that the situation is different and that the the way in which this job is lined up is different than the last 2 years. So maybe just saying, oh, Cal's more involved. This is the reason why, is unfair, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. The list of names is much more impressive now than it was before, and we'll see what happens with the Sean Payton thing. But I wouldn't bet on it. I actually put, and this is, I'm on Cap and Trade today, tonight at 9, with Texans Cap, and he'll act like he was joking about this, but he was not. Let me show y'all real quick how dense Texans Cap is, real quick. Let me just show you something. I tweeted out this picture of Sean Payton, which is obviously the Kevin James movie where he was supposed to be Sean Payton. I tweeted it out. The Kevin James pic. You see that right there. Let's see. It's right here. So I tweeted that out. It's pretty obvious that's not Sean Payton, and that was always funny to everyone that Kevin James was Sean Payton. Look at what Texans Cap said to that. That's not Sean Payton. No bleep, Cap. This dude, he is a smart yet slow dude. But yeah, the Sean Payton thing, cool, exciting, credibility. If he wants the job, it brings more credibility. If he gets the job, won't be the end of the world. I'm just a little bit skeptical about it. But there's nothing negative to doing this. Nothing negative to doing this. And as we look at the list right now, the current list is DeMeco Ryans from the Shanahan tree, local legend, hero, probably the people's choice. DeMeco Ryans is on the list. Jonathan Gannon, who is the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he would have a good staff. I think Frank Ross definitely stays if Jonathan Gannon comes because they work together in Indianapolis. Frank Reich might be on the staff, or he might take their quarterback coach Johnson here. He's been a part of the Hurts process too, much like Steichen. So maybe you get kind of the best of both worlds. You take the Eagles quarterback coach and a local guy who went to Baytown Lee High School. He's your offensive guy, and you get the defensive mind. You get Frank Ross, and who knows what else you get. So Gannon is intriguing. Shane Steichen, Caserio today, unsolicited when he was on Payne and Pendergast, and we'll get to that in a sec. He mentioned when he was asked about quarterback traits, he mentioned the way in which Jalen Hurts has been used, and Shane Steichen's been a part of that, as has Johnson. So if Jonathan Gannon brings Johnson, then, hey, best of both worlds. Speaking of Johnson's, Ben Johnson from Detroit, he's only been a coordinator for 1 year. It was a good year, but he's only been a coordinator for 1 year. And then you have Mike Kafka, also been a true offensive coordinator for 1 year, but he had a big hand in Patrick Mahomes' maturation. There are some people in Kansas City, they won't say it publicly, but the Chiefs might have wanted Bieniemy to get a head coaching job because they didn't want to lose Kafka, and didn't want someone like the Giants did to swoop in and get Kafka because they thought he was really important. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is never going to be bad. He's kind of coach proof at this point. He's going to ball out, but if you look at what Kafka's done with the Giants and with Daniel Jones, they're going to be in the playoffs this week and one of 3 teams in the NFC East. You got to love what Kafka does there. And then you have a Jairo Evero, good defensive coordinator in Denver. Really a championship effort by him this year. Just Russell Wilson was really limited. And then you have Sean Payton. So it's a good list. It's a really, really, really good list. Where would I put Sean Payton on my list? Probably fifth on my list. When you factor in everything that I've said before, fifth. But it's a really good list. Fourth or fifth. Behind DeMeco, behind Steichen, behind Gannon, behind Kafka. Probably in front of Johnson because there hasn't been enough of a body of work at Johnson. But that's my list. It's my list. So your list might be different. I mean, Sean Payton's the number one trending topic right now on the internet. So there you go. You can do with that what you want, and I'm sure you got a different list, which you can put in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ryan Solis, excuse me for my lack of pronunciation. Man, I got made fun of today for some of my Mexican food pronunciations from my Hispanic co-host, the OG John Lopez. Looking at past trade costs, I don't think it's worth it. Keep our picks and run with a young coach. Man, if you have to pay for Sean Payton what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had to pay for John Gruden, first of all, no one's going to do that. Then no, thank you. John Gruden was one of the youngest. Like John Gruden at that time was like Sean McVay. He was the most highly sought after young guy, and he was kind of the boy wonder. And Tampa Bay was kind of one of those teams that was on the brink, and they ended up bringing him in and winning a Super Bowl. Some will say he won it with Tony Dungy's players. Cool, but he did come in and win the Super Bowl. So you're not going to pay that price for a guy. How old is Sean Payton right now? Sean Payton he's already quit for whatever reason. It's not like he retired and then is coming back. He's 59 years old. You're not paying 2 first rounds for that. Kenneth says Bill Parcells did. He did not when he got traded. That is not true. From New England to the Jets, he coached right away. Now he went away and came back with the Cowboys, and he went away with the Giants and came back with the Patriots. But from the time he was traded, he did not step away and you had to trade for him. So no, that did not happen. That's incorrect, amigo. Lil Zawell Bra says, I don't even know what that means. Get DeMeco Ryans if he's going to pick a QB in the first round. If not, get one of the top offensive coordinators as our head coach and don't trade any picks for a head coach. Interesting. The Caserio angle is interesting. James brings up the Caserio shot. Look, if Sean Payton comes in here, then that tells you all you need to know about Nick Caserio. And the fact they're even bringing in Sean Payton, that's the other angle that I didn't mention. This tells you all you need to know about Nick Caserio. They don't think he's the end-all, be-all. Because if you really had a GM that you 100% trusted, you're not bringing in Sean Payton. I talked to one of Sean Payton's really good friends over the weekend on Sunday who used to work with him. One of my buddies, his dad's actually used to work with him too, Tony Sperano Jr. And Parcells. If Sean Payton is the quote that I got was Sean Payton's the type of guy that he wants to control the color of the rally towels in the seats. So, if I like Caserio's scouting department, I like Scout Goodhair and all that type of stuff, but just the fact they're even entertaining this, I think that tells you that neutered Nick is a real thing. He's definitely been neutered, and maybe Nick wants to be neutered. Like maybe that's kind of like the humbling thing for Nick Caserio. And maybe in a weird way, maybe that's why he liked having the POS person of service, Jack Easterby, around, because he likes working in groups and he likes working with people. Because Nick Caserio, he thrived in the New England situation with the Bill Belichick. So maybe Sean Payton can be his Bill Belichick, and we're heading in the right direction. Maybe that's it. But just the fact that Sean Payton's coming, it tells you everything that you need to know about what they think of Nick Caserio. Because you wouldn't put an extra respected general manager even in that situation. Maybe, I don't know. I could be making too much of it. But between the press conference and this, I don't think I am. Jim says, give DeMeco a blank check. I mean, I don't think you got to do that. I think if he wants the gig, he'll get a nice salary, and then we'll see what's happening. What's happening there? Tyler says is it bad that I come in the locker room instead of hanging with the drug? It's not bad. We're not competing. It's all good. We're all on the same team. Got that Odyssey app. You can fire it up. I'm not going to question your priorities, though. Sean James says, Sean McVay about to become Sean Payton 2.0. Leave knowing the Rams, like the Saints, are about to go through a rebuild. See, I don't know what the hell's going on with Sean McVay. But I think you could be onto something. They go around saying F them picks and they're bragging and stuff. And then it's basically F them picks till the lack of depth and the picks F you. And he's gone. With that said, now, if Sean McVay wants to come back next year, they're going to hire a coach that's going to be a long term. If 3 years from now, Sean McVay decides he gets the itch, let's say he goes and broadcasts for 3 years, then maybe I'll be open to it. But 59-year-old walked away after Drew Brees left. I don't know about that. Bob, how different would things be if a certain Big Chin coach got fired after one win in the playoffs? I mean, it would be a lot different. And that's the thing that Tennessee did that I think they deserve a lot of credit for. Hiring Mike Mularkey after beating Kansas City in the playoffs, they didn't overreact. They didn't let like some sort of in-season run, skew their judgment. They went and hired Mike Vrabel, and that was a pretty good hire. I know it's not hot right now, but that was a good hire. Colin, the Irishman, nice ink, by the way. I'd consider it a win if Sean Payton even agrees to show up for the interview, honestly. Absolutely. Absolutely. But because, look, what's the downside? The downside of interviewing Sean Payton is none. None. Your fans are excited. You look like a credible organization. You get to talk to Sean Payton for however long about the organization. Sean Payton gets to talk to you. He gets to give you his opinion. And from Sean Payton's point of view, if Denver wants to give him that Walmart money and do whatever they want to do, how much ever money they're going to pay him, or Arizona wants to pay him, he can use you for leverage. So it's a two-way thing. So I'm 100% okay with that. OY says he's not impressed with Nick. What did they mean by not using all the resources? We'll get into the Nick Caserio interview in a sec. I got thoughts on it. He was on with Payne and Pendergast. Some disappointing thoughts, some encouraging thoughts, some stuff that we'll use a little later on because got to pump out content. We'll get into the quarterbacks. He had some interesting stuff to say about the quarterbacks. We'll do that probably Friday. We'll do the quarterbacks Friday. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring in my buddy Wade Smith. He's been taking me to task a lot. Every time I'm on the show, my phone buzzes, and I got someone just saying, hey, I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. What are you saying? You said this. Or if I say something smart, to his credit, he'll give me credit for it. Finally, I just said, Wade, can you just come in the locker room and just tell me whatever you want to tell me? We need your opinion anyway, sir. Very well connected. So Wade Smith's going to join me in here tomorrow. We'll cut up, subscribe, spread the word. It's going to be Wade's first visit. I'm trying to bring, people that I think don't get enough run on the YouTube channel. So Wade's going to be here. He's going to be is going to be nice. OY also adds, we need elite players. The only way to win is by having elite players, need killers. That is true. But if you do have a good coach, like if you do it, to Sean Payton's defense, like I remember when Bill Parcells came to the Cowboys, they won 10 games with Quincy Carter and they were a disaster. I think they went 5-11 the previous 3 years. So if you do have a coach that can just coach up players like a Sean Payton, like a Bill Parcells, I even think Bill Belichick has actually coached up this raggedy-ass Patriots team. It does go a long way. But as far as, like, giving up some sort of, like, king's ransom, I just don't see that. Sauce Boys 713. What if Jack Easterby wanted to hire McCown and Nick wanted Gannon, and after the Flores lawsuit, the whole team panic and hire Lovey as a result? Without Easterby, I hope Nick leads this ship right. Yes, without Easterby, life is easier for anyone. I don't know why anyone would even want to be around that guy. I damn sure wouldn't want him around my football organization unless he's a chaplain. And let's be honest, I think he had other goals there. I don't think those goals just developed along the way. But the whole situation as a whole is different. So I don't want to blame him for that. Steven, would you take Levis at 2? Hell no. Don't think so. Ryan's asking for a 7-round mock draft. Man, it's so exhausting. We'll mock out with our bleep out when the draft comes around for sure. We got 4 months. But yeah, I'm not going to do it like this early. BR says, I don't think the offense is that bad. Got pieces like Tunsil, Howard, Green, Pierce, Nico, and Mechie. What does we got Nico and Mechie mean? To me, you just laid out an example of why there's a really, really thin receiving core, and they need to address that. They also need another running back. Green has to play better. The tackles were straight, and then you need a quarterback. So, yeah, the offense is far away. It can be fixed, but you need a lot. Fortunately, you have a lot of assets to be able to do that. Bobater says, look at the Bengals. Their rebuild is the way. Yeah, they got Chase and they got Burrow, did their thing. Would Sean Payton want to start over with a rookie QB? I don't know. That's the thing. Like, does Sean Payton want to rebuild? I don't really think that. Do you think candidates openly say they don't want to be here because Nick Cal will fire them? I'm glad you asked that question. And that's a hell of a transition by you, Louie. I greatly appreciate that. Look, Nick Caserio was on Payne and Pendergast today. And he brought up a couple of things. I strongly recommend just checking it out on the Odyssey app. Payne and Pendergast, best show in the city. They had Nick on. They have a relationship with Nick. It seems like they're getting a little bit of a dynamic going. But Nick was on. Biggest takeaways from Nick's interview, and we'll hear him on these reports of lack of interest and all that type of stuff. First of all, I don't want to say disappointed. I would have liked to have heard Nick Caserio at least talk about what Cal's role was going to be. And I don't blame Nick for not answering questions. Like, a lot of GMs just talk in circles, and that's kind of what he does. That's kind of Nick's thing. He talks about accountability, but then he won't be specific on what he's accountable for, which I think is unaccountable. I would just not mention the word accountability unless you're really going to be accountable. It's kind of like, and maybe he's accountable behind the scenes, but it's like this. And I've always told everyone I work with on the radio not to do this. And you'll hear some people do this. And I think a lot of radio listeners that listen to radio can kind of relate to this. I hate when someone goes on the air and they say, well, I just know so much and I just can't say it right now. Or I can't, there's so much more to the story that I wish I could tell you. Keep it to yourself then. Like, you're not doing your listener any favors by sitting up there and saying that. Like, you're not doing anyone any favors. when you go up there and say that. So when Nick Caserio goes up there and says, I suck and I need to be more accountable, it's not any better than Bill O'Brien going up there and saying, I got to be better. Like Chris Ballard of the Indianapolis Colts. Oh, he said a lot. First of all, he said he's going to be willing to go up and get a quarterback, whatever the price is. So the Texans are in jeopardy of getting leapt by the Indianapolis Colts because of that meaningless ass win on Sunday, which happened because Nick Caserio didn't trade Brandon Cooks. But that's neither here nor there. But Chris Ballard goes up there and says, look, we thought Carson Wentz was going to be the long-term solution at quarterback. We screwed up, and I'm pissed off at myself, and we misevaluated that, and that was a bad evaluation by me. I mean, if Nick Caserio went up there and said, look, I don't think he needs to apologize for the Lovie Smith firing. I don't think he needs to apologize for the Coley hiring/firing, whatever, both. I'm fine with where they are in this process. But maybe he'd come out and say, yeah, I trusted the wrong person, which he kind of did. He wouldn't admit it with the Easterby thing, but maybe I kind of trusted the wrong people, and the process wasn't as open and stuff. That's fine, but you've got to be specific on the accountability, or it's not really accountability. It's just word salad. Preferably an Olive Garden salad, because Olive Garden is the best salad. Period. Doesn't matter what bougie Italian restaurant you go to. Olive Garden's the best salad. So I would have liked to have heard about Cal's role. I thought the stuff about the quarterbacks was really good. I thought the stuff about Mechie was really good. I thought that the stuff about, rookies, Kenyon Green and stuff was pretty good. But I would have liked to have heard what Cal's role is going to be. Other than that, it was straight. Now, he did address, and this was something that I immediately spoke to you guys about when I got back from the press conference. He did address him going to his press conference and basically saying, well, if I'm not the guy, then, it's, I'm just going to have to accept that. And if the next coach doesn't want to work with me, then, it's just something I'm going to have to accept. And if, he said it 5 times, and and in different ways, if, I'm not the guy that gets it done, then, that's okay. I'm just going to have to go. 5 times. Weird. In his defense, he was probably tired. It's a long couple of days for him. But this was his explanation, and he actually brought me up on Payne and Pendergast. This is Nick Caserio on his weird delivery and the 5 mentions of leaving the organization in some way, shape, or form.
I think the reality was, and I probably didn't do a good job of conveying the right message, but the point I was trying to make is that I'm accountable for the process, and I'm going to try to do a better job of setting up and managing that process. So whatever comes along with that. So I think that's the point I was trying to make. I enjoy my job. I love my job. I love being here. We got a lot of work in front of us. I'm not going to shy away from the work. I've never been afraid to put in the work, but I think the point I was trying to make, and, I think I drove Landry crazy, but anyways, the point I was trying to make is just I'm accountable, and I understand that I have a lot of responsibility. And quite frankly, I haven't done a good enough job. We're going to look for ways to improve. We're going to look for ways to move this situation forward, and we're excited about the opportunity in front of us. So I'll take responsibility for that. I probably did a poor job of conveying that.
Okay. All right. You did. I mean, I don't disagree with him on that. You did do a poor job, and it came across more as, because I get like the gist of what he was saying. It just came across as kind of like, whatever. You ever been around someone and just like, whatever. Like that's what it came across as. It didn't come across as like real, like, I got to get this right. Like that's what Chris Ballard sounded like. And again, it might not matter anything. Like if Chris Ballard keeps doing what he's been doing and Jim Irsay keeps milling, it doesn't matter. He can go up there and recite the Gettysburg Address or the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. It won't matter. It is just words. I am the podium critic, though, so I've been known to put too much in words, but like it just came across as, I'm a robot. I'm going to show up to the stadium at 4. I'm going to leave at midnight. We're going to have great notes. Systems and processes are going to be great. Step away from it, man. Give me something, man. Give me a I give a damn. I'm pissed. I don't like doing this. I want to be in a situation where I'm focusing on the off season. I don't have to go through a coaching hire. It's time. There's no more distractions. We've been through a lot. We had a quarterback that didn't want to be here before I got there. We had the sexual allegations. Had a big bald creep that I call my friend that I bonded with when he was a chaplain. I inherited him as a damn football executive. He's going around driving me nuts. It's time for business. I'm here to win, damn it. I know the fans are pissed off. We see how empty the seats are. That's accountability. We see how empty the seats are. We know on paper we don't have the best roster. We know we haven't given our fans a lot to be excited about. But I'm going to be the guy that when things get right, I'm going to be the guy that turns this around. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to die trying. I'm going to die trying. I'm going to give it every damn thing I got. Not whatever. And I'm not going to be here. I'll just have to accept it. I mean, yes, he's correct. It did drive me crazy. It did. Which might be too much, might not be. I don't know. But it drove me crazy. Now, here's Nick Caserio on the rumors of lack of interest. And I think this is kind of, you hear all these national media types. You got people saying don't take the job. You got people. James Palmer, I was really disappointed in. I love James Palmer. James Palmer is the national guy that's here the most. I don't know if he's just dumbing himself down here because it's kind of like the popular thing. But James Palmer said something like, let me just find it so I can be close, but so I can like not misrepresent James. I like James, so I don't want to headline porn him or like missummarize. So let me find what James said. I'll pull this up. Let me get the share screen. It's James Palmer. Here we go. All right. So let's go down to his media. Here's Burrow, Broncos. All right, here he is. And of course, he's got Jim Trotter up there.
Andrew, there's several.
Who has had some things to say about the Texans gig.
Andrew, there's several questions, and I'll get to them. But the first one is the most important one, is that asking Nick Caserio, who's going to be running this along with owner Cal McNair, is, are you going to give me time to rebuild this organization? How can you sell me on the fact that you are going to be patient after, as you mentioned, you went one and done with David Culley and one and done with Lovie Smith, when I've been down there covering that organization a lot over the last year, where they've been very open with saying they believe they're several years away from being a true contender in the NFL, yet you still continue to move on from.
You can still underachieve but when you have low expectations. Like James knows that. Like David Culley, no one else was going to hire David Culley, so they went with David Culley. I'm not saying the process was good or anything like that, but who did they reject that would, with where they are right now, they're actually in perhaps the best ideal spot for the 2 years of mud they had to get through with the $75 million dead cap. They hired two guys that weren't going to get hired anywhere else. Like, I get, you're not being patient, but just because expectations are low, you don't just say, well, the guys can't underachieve. Like, anyone who watched every Texans game knew that David Culley needed to be gone and Lovie Smith needed to be gone. And now the job is more appealing. So I don't think like DeMeco Ryans is going to come in here and say, how long am I going to get? Am I going to be a one and done coach? DeMeco Ryans could go 1-16 next year, and he's going to be back for a year too. Same thing with any of these guys. Like, just the list itself is better. So I'm actually kind of
these head coaching candidates. Now, the other question I would have is, how is the process going to be as you're interviewing me? Because it's been different over the last couple of seasons as they've been churning through these head coaches. I remember 2 years ago when they were looking for a general manager and a head coach to help out ownership, they hired a head coaching searching committee that included Tony Dungy, included Andre Johnson, included Jimmy Johnson. That group was barely used, to my understanding.
Which was weird.
They weren't leaned on by any stretch of the imagination. Now, when you look into this search, owner Cal McNair says that he is going to have a much larger role in this head coaching search as opposed to the previous ones. We don't know what that role is going to be because yesterday during the press conference, he had an opening statement and then sat in the front row and didn't take any questions. So we don't know what that role is going to be, but there's a lot of questions as a head coach that you would have if you're trying to fill this vacancy in Houston. Now, Nick Caserio says that they are going to be welcomed, that those are fair questions to ask him in the process. It just is a very interesting process in Houston from the.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the questions will be asked. The James stuff isn't as bad as a lot of the other stuff, but I mean, I just think comparing, DeMeco Ryans or something else coming in here and interviewing and acting as if you can't underachieve when you have low expectations. I think it's a little bit silly. I think it's a little bit silly. And I mean, like the just the flat out facts. How crazy is it that the interaction between Jay Feely and Cody Stutes was absolutely hilarious. But this just kind of shows how people like are with their facts, like on some of these things. And when we're talking about like top of the line media organizations. This is the interaction with Stutes. My buddy Stutes right here. I'll pull this up too. And this is just kind of like even people who aren't trying to fire up dialogue and be ridiculous. They don't even get their facts straight when it comes to the Texans thing. So here's Stutes. Stutes says nothing quite like Jay Feely getting the facts wrong. The 49ers fired coaches in back-to-back years. Feely said it's never happened when talking about the Texans potentially doing the same. I noticed that too, and I thought it was hilarious because it has happened. It happened in 2017. Jock Reeves, the former Texans cornerback, he had an interesting exchange too. He's grabbing the low-hanging fruit, but that's cool. But I'm whatever. But Jay Feely responds, never been one and done coaches in back-to-back years. Keep up. So look at this. Stutes didn't even mention Jay Feely. Stutes is like the least controversial person on the internet. And Jay Feely says, never been one and done coaches in back-to-back years. Keep up. Stutes sends him the clear picture that Jim Tom Sula in 2015, Chip Kelly in 2016 were hired before Kyle Shanahan, and Jim Harbaugh's final year was before that. But there's the 2 one and dones. He said, keep up. So Stutes told him, Jay, the 49ers did it. Keep up. Jay Feely, to his credit, I guess, he replied and said, I stand corrected. We had notes that said it would be the first time. You had notes that said it would be the first time. I mean, good Lord. Does the D team, CBS broadcast team, which does a good job, which they did an excellent job calling the game, but do they get the D team stats and info squad too? Or did Jay just make that up and not want to admit it? Because good Lord. I mean, you had notes that said that? that had never happened? That's crazy. I mean, I think CBS has pretty decent amount of bread. They got a decent research staff. We're just putting that stuff out there. It's national effing TV, man. That's probably the most that a Texans game has been watched. And the Texans deserve all the smoke they get. Some of it. I mean, most of it. I mean, there is some recklessness from Stephen A. Smith, who says Romeo Crennel got done wrong. Or Jim Trotter, who wanted Pep Hamilton to be a head coach a year and a half ago, and Mel Tucker a year ago. But you're on national TV. You're saying there's never been consecutive one-and-done coaches? And it happened less than half a decade ago? Now, maybe not the same general manager. That's fair. But again, it's kind of an unprecedented situation, right? Like, what are you going to compare the Texans' current situation to? But my point is, like, even a guy who's, and Jay Feely's not he's not a hot take slot. Like, Jay Feely's good. I like Jay Feely. I have no issue with Jay Feely. But damn, we had notes. Nope. Good Lord. Up y'all's game a little bit. But now my point is, like, just imagine someone who is kind of trying to hammer things and how much research they're going to do. Stephen A. Romeo Crennel got done wrong. Like, did they even, like, Stephen A's a pretty popular guy. Could he ask Romeo Crennel if he thought he got done wrong? I mean, it wouldn't be hard to figure that out. Ask David Culley even. I mean, he might have wanted some more time, but David Culley loved the opportunity. I don't know what Lovey thinks. Who cares? Lovey was a disaster. But that's just an example. Here is Caserio, though, on the rumors of lack of interest. And I think this might be specific on the DeMeco Ryans front. There was a report. I think Aaron Wilson said it like a week and a half ago. I rolled my eyes at it. And I like Aaron. I rolled my eyes. Not because I don't think that someone told him that. I just don't believe that DeMeco Ryans would come out and say, I'm not interested. First of all, I don't think he would come out and say, or anyone around him would say, I'm interested in a job, when the Texans hadn't even, first of all, the process hadn't been laid out. Lovie Smith hadn't been fired. So why in the hell would DeMeco Ryans even say, I'm interested in a job? And furthermore, I just think a lot of agents put stuff in people's heads. But this is Nick Caserio with Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610. This was Nick Caserio talking about the lack of interest of the job. And I think he's specifically talking about the DeMeco Ryans thing.
There's certainly a level of interest in our situation. I think it's a credit to the city. I think people realize it's a great sports town. There's an opportunity in front of us. We put ourselves in decent position. Nobody's happy with where we are, but we're excited about the opportunity in front of us. And there's always going to be a lot of information. There's always going to be a lot of, I would say, news flow, and I would say perspectives that are shared. And I think we have to be careful, I would say, me personally, and even to the fans and a lot of us, not to necessarily get caught up in it, because what somebody is actually saying versus what the reality is are sometimes two different things. And some of my conversations with agents and representatives about candidates who they're perceived not interested in the job, it couldn't be further from the truth. So when you actually talk to their representative about how excited they are about the potentially interview, this is something that they're encouraged by, that they look forward to. It sometimes doesn't always. So what you're hearing is different than maybe what people are really saying.
All right, there you go. What you're hearing is really different than what people are saying. Yeah, I agree. Very much agree. Some other news in the NFL today that might affect the Houston Texans. You had the report, and this is Aaron too. Aaron Wilson. I hope he's right on this one. Mike LaFleur of the New York Jets be out as offensive coordinator. I know Aaron has a lot of relationships with a lot of guys, so I'm assuming that he's going to be right on this. Now, Josina Anderson and a couple of Jets beat reporters have said that's not going to be the case. But if LaFleur gets fired, I wonder if he could possibly be he might go work with his brother in Green Bay. That's possible. But could he end up being on DeMeco Ryans' staff? I don't know what the hell he was really supposed to do. So there you go. He's parting ways. It's official right now. Ian Rappaport just said it. So there's a W for Aaron Wilson. Good. Very happy. I know he's got a lot of good relationships. So he dunked on Josina Anderson and the people that question him. Good for A-Dub. I think he was wrong about DeMeco, but he's right about this. So there you go. And not wrong because he made it up. Wrong because I think it was early in the situation. But so there you go. Appreciate you, Wheellock, for giving me that heads up. Sometimes when you're live and you're not shuffling, there's that. So Mike LaFleur, gone. Could he be a DeMeco Ryans OC? Is he going to go work with his brother? Who knows? But he's gone. And there you go. More questions. B. Rio. So Landry, as someone who's in the media that can ask team members questions, what would you say is the most shocking response to a question you've ever seen or asked? Probably the Bill O'Brien, when I just simply asked him after the Cowboys game, like here, he just said he didn't know why they weren't running the ball, and Deshaun Watson ended up getting his ass whooped so bad that he had to take a bus to the game 2 weeks later. It was like an interesting exchange. He said something like, I don't know. I gave him like numbers and everything. So I don't, I guess that there's been some NBA encounters that have been pretty interesting. But as far as that was probably it with O'Brien. He was a little bit interesting. AP, why is there not more hype for Jim Harbaugh to the Texans? I don't know. I'm not sure. Harbaugh, I don't know. It's like another Sean Payton type of thing. Very good football coach, but I don't know. Maybe they'll talk to Jim. Have no idea. I don't know what Jim Harbaugh would want. But who knows? MB asks, I don't know if you said anything. Who do you see new coach and why? I mean, I could see any of these guys. I don't see Sean Payton working out. He's probably fifth on my list. But I could see any of these guys working out. I keep an eye on Philadelphia. They obviously have a fascination with Philadelphia. The interesting thing that I've heard, and I think Lopez threw this out there, is maybe you could have a situation where you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you bring in Jonathan Gannon and then he brings the Eagles quarterback coach Brian Johnson with him. Went to high school at Baytown Lee, went to Utah. He's 35 years old. He's worked with Jalen Hurts and could just be a guy that, brings some of that experience in working with Jalen Hurts and the success they've had in Philly. And you get Jonathan Gannon, the defensive guy. So you're basically dipping into 2 of 3 phases of what was the best team in football during the regular season. And not only that, if you talk about potential staffs and whatnot, Jonathan Gannon, between Johnson, Frank Reich, him and Frank Ross worked together in Indianapolis. Gannon and he did. So I think he would put together a hell of a staff, which is very important in this whole thing. like Sean Payton's talking about, Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I guess. I mean, and I like Vic fine, but I mean, good God. Like, how I'm tired of 65-year-old coaches. And I know that might sound like ageism, but I just don't want like a 65-year-old defensive coordinator anymore. Like, I don't want that. I want like some new blood. So, like Jonathan Gannon bringing in, some young blood, the Johnson, keeping Frank Ross here, that type of thing. I'm good with that. And that's no disrespect to Ben, but I'm just not really, really down with that. Carolyn says that Ben needs more seasoning as an OC. He's far too young. He's 35. And he's worked with Jalen Hurts. And the one thing I would say to Carolyn, and I appreciate you for being in, please like and subscribe to the video. The one thing I would say is, yeah, you can say he's young, but the resume is pretty good right now. And he's the same age as Mike Kafka. Mike Kafka's 35. Mike Kafka came from, Kansas City, where Andy's calling the plays, and he did really, really good in year one with Daniel Jones. So I would, I don't think he's too young. And I would rather have too young than, like Pep Hamilton, who, maybe sometimes the league just knows more than we do. I know it's kind of weird because if you cover the Texans, if you follow the Texans, if you support the Texans, you talk about like things and you feel like you're smarter than the front office. But sometimes the league, like especially the competent organizations, they know. So with Pep Hamilton, not being an OC and you heard about all that, like maybe there was a reason why Pep Hamilton was not a OC all those years. We kind of saw it. The Bieniemy thing, I don't even think we touched on that. I'm watching Carolyn and Nancy go at it. What is wrong? What are y'all doing? That can't be real. That's got to be fake. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the league knows more. But I would be intrigued by Ben Johnson, just seeing what he's got. I'm fine with young offensive coordinators. Like the too young thing, I mean, I think one of the myths that has been squashed in the recent NFL is young is in when it comes to head coaches. These young guys, they don't get stuck in their ways. They get more and more information. They're willing to progress, and they're not like a lot of the hard heads. But who knows? Who knows where the Texans will go? They seem to be leaning young right now, although they just requested to interview 59-year-old Sean Payton, and not as big of a fan as many people are. But hey, it brings excitement, it brings credibility, and I'm excited about it. So we'll see what happens, and it'll be a very, very interesting time. I think we're going to get to talk to Cal McNair on Friday. I know Lopez is pretty excited about that. We're pretty excited about that. It was good to hear from Caserio today. Good to know that he got some sleep. Good to know that he was either watching the channel or listening to In the Loop. Should have listened to me about Jack sooner, and should have listened to me about Brandon Cooks. And we'd be talking about a number one pick, which, by the way, the Colts are the second betting favorite to jump up and get that pick. And Chris Ballard has said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Isaac says 90% chance Sean Payton is the next coach. All right. So we'll see about all that. Can't be mad about the Sean Payton thing. It's not a losing situation. It's a winning situation. I'll be on with Texans Cap tonight. Cap and trade. Subscribe to the channel. Listen to me on In the Loop Sports Radio 610. Fire up that Odyssey app, and you can go to the Payne and Pendergast section. Go directly to 7:30 a.m. The Nick Caserio interview if you want to hear the whole thing for yourself. We'll also hear what Nick had to say about the quarterbacks in the next couple of days, probably Friday. Tomorrow, Wade Smith's going to join the show, and we're going to just keep this thing going. We're 4 or 5 months strong, few months strong on this channel. It's growing. It's the only source of daily digital Texans content, and it's as close to the situation as you can possibly get. I enjoy doing it. It can be stressful, but you guys make it a lot more fun. And this has actually been a pretty fun week given what happened at noon on Sunday. No matter what happens, though, just remember, we are all in this together. Like, subscribe, spread. Talk to you tomorrow.